Hi. Hello and welcome to Knock Knock Hi with the Glaucomfleckens. We're the Glaucomfleckens. I'm Dr. Glaucomflecken,
I'm
also known as...
Lady
Oh, wait,
Glaucomflecken.
you didn't
I'm
let me say
sorry I
my
interrupted.
real name. How people are going to need my real name?
Mm,
Although they're probably honestly, Dr. Glaucomflecken is more famous than my actual name.
it's true. No
Will
one knows your
Flannery.
real
No
name. In
one, no
fact,
one
when they
cares.
find out your real
No
name, they're
one.
like, "Oh, I'm kind of disappointed. Like,
That's
that's a stupid
true.
name."
They, I don't think sometimes people don't like to hear it. I don't know. It's
It's
weird.
telling when they think that Will Flannery is a more stupid name than Dr. Glaucomflecken.
I think it's not it's a little bit of a it's just very Irish.
It's
That's
very
that's all it
Irish.
is. Hey, but you took it. So
Well, true.
Kristen Flannery,
It's
you're a
true.
Flannery as well.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, you can just forget about our real names and just know
Just
us
we're
as the
Irish and
Glaucomfleckens.
Irish by marriage, and apparently that's the point.
Our show today is very exciting for us because we're talking
Yes.
to one of our favorite people.
Love him.
Yeah, Dr. Ben Abella. He's an emergency physician at the University of Pennsylvania. And the reason that we know him and are so familiar with him is because of my crazy medical history, which I've talked about here and there on different social media platforms, certainly on TikTok and Twitter. I've, as many of you probably already know, I had a cardiac arrest in my sleep back in May of 2020. It was, we still don't know why it happened. That's somewhat of a mystery. But Kristen here woke up and started CPR on me and
Yes.
saved my life, which is why anytime she gives me, uh, you know,
Yeah, I have
makes
carte
fun of me.
blanche to
Yeah,
just say
what am I
whatever I
trying? Yeah,
want.
exactly. Whatever she wants to say to me, I just kind of
It's to revenge
accept it.
for dying on me.
Yeah, and here's the thing, you guys, like when your wife saves your life, you just don't win any arguments anymore. That's it. So yeah, it's just part of our new dynamic here, which is totally fine because after all,
Beats the alternative.
I'm still here, right? So but in recovering from the cardiac arrest and together going through all that, Kristen connected with Ben Abella, who is a big name in cardiac arrest research.
Yes.
He's done a ton of work in just CPR advocacy and awareness and AED awareness. And that's something that we're very interested in. So we'll talk a lot about that during the episode.
Yes. He also, I think, has never met a person that he did not offer to help in some way. Like, he's a very
Yes.
generous person, just a kind of a natural mentor. And also, I think he knows everyone on earth.
He might. And he's also an emergency physician. And so those are also fun people to hang around. If you've never hung out with an emergency doctor, or maybe you know one and you're going to go out there and try to become friends with them or date them or something, you want to show up with some Diet Coke. Can I
Yes.
just
Mhm.
one thing that you should know about emergency doctors is the caffeine must be flowing freely and constantly. They live for adrenaline. They love the fast pace of an emergency experience, emergency departments, and so that's how you can get in good. Also, just offer to go biking with them. That's
Mhm.
another totally
Or
true,
skydiving.
stereotype that I play up very much in my content is the whole biking and wearing a helmet and all that stuff. And so that's kind of what they're like, but they're also wonderful people and they do incredible work. And so we're excited to talk to Ben and hear some of his stories
Pretty
and
crazy ones.
yeah, and just his thoughts on cardiac arrest and just what he does. And so it's a great conversation. We're excited about it. So should I stop rambling?
Yes, please.
Is
Let's
it,
get to it.
I could tell whenever you start looking at me like, okay, you've been like, you're obviously not thinking ahead of what you're saying. You're just saying the first words that come
Like
out
you're
of your
doing
mouth.
right now.
I'm still doing it. All right, let's get going. Here is Dr. Ben Abella. All right, we have Dr. Ben Abella. Ben, it's good to talk with you always.
Thank you.
You're wearing scrubs right now. And so I
Yes.
assumed you were either You're either coming from work, about to leave for work, or you're just pretending to work. What's the
Honest,
situation here?
I am just pretending, quite honestly. And, it's interesting that you've caught me on that. So I call this, I think in the acting world, this is called playing to type. In the
Mhm.
COVID era, things all went to heck, as we all know. And I just sort of like honestly gave up on clothing and realized that I could wear scrubs almost every day. And everyone would assume that I'm just a hardworking ER doctor going to or from a shift. And I just would smile generally and not like dissuade them of that thought. I wouldn't lie and say I did. I would just be like, yeah,
Yeah.
just working,
I I
what
just
can I
assumed every emergency doctor always wears scrubs. There are some that don't.
Yeah, like, you
uh,
sleep in them, you shower in them.
Yeah.
well, it's either that or the fleece and the cargo pants. It's
Yeah,
a,
yeah. No, you never wear a tie, right? You never wear
no,
a no,
no,
God,
no,
no. That
no,
that would
God,
actually
no.
throw me off. I'd be a little concerned, like, with the hospital administrator, are they hiring those to see patients in the emergency
Yeah,
room? I don't know.
something would be amiss. There would be a disturbance in the force in that
But
sort of a
I
situation.
knew I knew you weren't, like, actually working when you first came on here just because I didn't see any Diet Coke, no form of caffeine, nothing around you. So,
No
clearly you're
trauma
not at work.
shears. No trauma shears, no Diet Coke. Yeah, yeah. I'm missing some of my key tools for sure.
Now, I felt a little bit bad because we were emailing each other before we started recording here last couple days, and I always think of you in terms of cardiac arrest because that's how we know each other, right? You and Kristen actually started talking to each other as I don't even know, like, how you guys ever actually kinda connected the first time, but that's how I know you because you're a big name. You do a lot of work, surrounding cardiac arrest and survivorship and everything, and so whenever I was emailing you, I called you a cardiologist
Yeah,
on accident.
that was
I
embarrassing
felt
for
I
you.
felt really bad, because, God, I know no one wants to be called a cardiologist if they don't have to be.
Well, the therapy bills have been expensive since our conversation, but I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm mostly better at this point. Yeah, yeah.
Because you are not, you are an emergency physician, as you've already mentioned. Um,
Yes.
and so how did you get, I haven't heard this from you. How'd you get on that track to like really
Yeah.
being an emergency, but focusing on cardiac arrest?
It is an interesting story to tell, or at least for those in the medical business, because many of us in medicine set out with a certain goal in mind. Like I'm going to be a X, I'm going to be a pediatric neurologist, I'm going to be whatever, and then sort of life happens, because you go to med school, you meet different people. There's sort of this randomness of your rotations and experiences, and it's worth mentioning that I went to medical school at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, and at the time, I'm a little bit older. At the time, emergency medicine was still young. I mean,
Mhm.
technically it is still young, but even at that time at Hopkins, especially, it was honestly a little bit frowned down upon. It was sort of
Really?
yeah. In the grand traditions of Johns Hopkins, you either did surgery or medicine. I mean, I don't even know what they thought of ophthalmology, but you either did surgery or medicine, and that was like it. And and
Wait,
and
I
that
can't even hold on. I can't even imagine like a world where emergency medicine, like as a specialty, doesn't exist.
well,
Like
it
that's actually
exists.
surprising to hear. Like, so it's a relatively new field.
Yes.
What were people doing? Are they were I
Yeah.
mean,
So emergency medicine residencies and emergency rooms as a concept were really, believe it or not, 60s and 70s. In 1950, there was no emergency medicine physician. There was a place where people who were having problems could go, and then their doctor or someone would come downstairs and meet them to do an evaluation. And
I
then
see.
some,
Okay.
as best I can tell, and I'm not an excellent historian, so
Yeah.
there might be some pedantic listeners who go, he doesn't have it quite right. But this is like
That's all right. We'll
mostly
give you
right.
this benefit of the doubt here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What is mostly correct is a number of physicians in the 60s said this isn't working because it's a whole thing unto itself to have sort of a sense of
Yeah.
a rapid workup of patients in extremis, of knowing some procedural skills. And so emergency medicine is really arguably only around 50 or 60 years old. And so I went to medical school in the 90s. And at Hopkins, not other places necessarily, but at Hopkins it was frowned down upon. It really was. And people did it, and that was fine. But but I was earmarked as a man of medicine. It was clear that I was meant to do medicine. And I was the first doctor in the family, so what the heck did I know? I don't know
Oh,
anything. And I distinctly remember a conversation with a dude. I'm sure he had a bow tie. He must have. Metaphorically, he was a bow tie
probably.
guy. And I
Yeah.
think you know what that means. There's the doctors with the white hair and the
Oh, of
bow tie.
course.
Yeah. And he said to me, young man, emergency medicine is a job, internal medicine is a career. Those were his
Oh.
exact words. I mean, do people talk like this? I don't know, but he, and I just sat there going, oh, okay, sure. What did I know?
Yeah.
First talk to my
Actually,
family.
my mentor told me, like, ophthalmology is a job, TikTok is a career. That really changed my life. It
Yeah,
it
sure.
it really got me on this track anyway.
Nice,
Go
very
ahead.
nice. Well, an excellent career it is provided.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did medicine because I was sort of semi browbeaten, semi ignorant. I just didn't know what I was doing. And back then, internal medicine residents did a lot of time in the ER. And I
Mhm.
just loved my months in the ER. It was just super fun. And I did not love clinic. I did not love rounds. And I would have a lot of discussions with my new emergency medicine friends about how I was really, sort of like going back to wondering if I made a mistake and if emergency medicine was for me. And I distinctly remember one of the moments that just did it for me. It was a night shift, and one of the residents who knew he was going to just like nail me right in the gut said, "Well, Ben, that's fine. You can stay with internal medicine. After all, I think you enjoy calculating FINAs all day long." And FINAs, for those who don't know, fractional excretion of
Yeah.
sodium, totally boring, like renal math stuff. And
I'm
I was just
nodding
like,
like I know what you're talking about. But yeah, keep going. Keep going.
and I was just like, that's it. I'm done. Like I'm out. This is, and and I now my wife would tell a slightly different version of the story. She would say what really did it for me was I did emergency medicine and internal medicine both. I'm boarded in both, which really, whoo,
Mm,
at University of Chicago, where I'm from Chicago. And the University of Chicago program had a helicopter program. And the second year residents were flight docs who got to fly in the medical helicopter all the time. I've always been a flight buff. Like I love little
yeah.
airplanes and helicopters. I did hang gliding at one point in my life. And my wife would say, yeah, it wasn't about the medicine. You just wanted to get in that helicopter.
I mean,
I
it all
can't,
makes
She's not
sense.
wrong.
Hang
she's not wrong.
gliding, you're the more I hear you talk, the more it just makes perfect sense, emergency medicine.
Yeah,
Right?
You
it's
get
just
Yeah.
what you were born to be.
you got a
Can't
little,
fight
Yes.
like,
that.
A
adrenaline, thing going on. So, but
little
then
bit,
you
a
but
little
you
bit.
held on to that, feeling like you needed to be a man of medicine, right? And
Well,
so I
that's right.
guess
So I wanted to be involved with heart stuff. I still like the
mhm,
heart, and I fell in with a mentor who was just a cardiac arrest researcher. And actually, the moment I knew I wanted to study cardiac arrest was actually when I was still a medicine resident, and I was at University of Chicago. Medicine residents would take turns being what's called Dr. CART. It stands for Cardiac Arrest Response Team. And so one 24-hour period, I was Dr. CART, and we had the record for the most cardiac arrests in a 24-hour period in a hospital while I was on 8 cardiac arrests. So we did 8
whoa,
codes in a 24-hour period, and a code's sort of an hour, hour and a half from start to
yeah.
finish. So basically, I was coding people all day long. We couldn't finish rounds. We
Oh
kept
my god.
interrupting rounds to go code somebody, and the poor attending was like left like standing around doing nothing. Um, and it was a pivotal moment because it got me thinking, my goodness, these codes are crazy. The
Mhm.
the quality of care around codes is a mess. People's understanding of why people code and how to get them back is a mess, and it needs work. And it just sort of captivated my attention.
And it's still somewhat of a mess. Like there's a the more I've learned about it from you and others, and really in the public sphere, right? Because
Yeah,
part of what I do is kind of, toe this line between like the medical people and non-medical people because I have people that watch my videos on both sides. And whenever I've talked about my own cardiac arrest, I still have people like say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you had a heart attack."
Well, I
Like,
even thought you had a heart attack. Like,
yeah,
the
yeah.
doctors didn't explain the difference. I didn't know there was a difference. I'm a highly educated person. I'm just not in medicine. Had
So
no idea they
so
were
even
different.
going down to that level, right? Of like,
oh
what is
yeah.
a cardiac arrest is a lot of people just don't know.
When I get out there sometimes and talk about CPR, someone will say, "Oh, my brother had a heart attack. He didn't need CPR." So I'm totally confused, and they sort of just don't even get it.
Mhm.
And there are famous media figures that I've worked with. I shouldn't name names, but people you would know who are on TV all the time. Where after I met with them to do a piece on cardiac arrest on air, physicians media physicians would say, "Oh yeah, for a heart attack," and it would like make my
Was it
it's like
Dr. Oz? Was it Dr.
Be
Oz?
honest.
not
If
not
maybe
not
okay,
us.
we're not gonna
It's
speculate,
no
but
no.
it was Dr. No, I don't know. I don't know.
It was
We'll
a
just
certain
assume.
other famous television doctor who will just leave nameless. But
Sure, that's fine.
yeah, not Dr. Oz. He and I are not friends currently. So yeah, so we shouldn't even go there on this podcast. But
I guess not. Well, you are from Philly, so it's probably been a topic of discussion. But yeah, we'll
it
move on.
has. It has.
Um, so I'm sure that in thinking about going the internal medicine route versus emergency medicine route, at the very least, emergency medicine probably provides you better stories and fun, like interesting things that happen in your day to day life. I think you're probably the best person to talk to about that, and so I'd love to hear, tell us what's going on. What are the kinds of things that happen to you that you experience in your line of work? Because it's very far outside I try very hard not to go to the emergency department as an
Right.
ophthalmologist. So
You
it's
seem fine to be going there as a patient,
oh yeah, I'll go. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's fine. Although
but
that,
as an ophthalmologist.
probably should have rethought that decision if I was thinking
Well,
at
I
the
gotta
time.
say, I just loved, I was at your ASAP lecture where both of you just did such a masterful job. I mean, you really killed it. And one of my favorite bits from that was when you said to all the ER docs, "All right, you did it. An ophthalmologist is here on a Saturday. Give me your consults. Let's go. Come on."
That's right.
And they'd love that because everyone really at a deep level understood exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah, because you can't get us in there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly true that emergency medicine is great for the stories. Some
Mhm.
of the things we see and do are just crazy. Many of which are not G-rated. Some of
Yeah,
which take a strong
I
stomach.
imagine.
So I've thought about this a little bit, and I've got a
Yeah.
couple of stories that are sort of for general consumption that speak to just sort of the zaniness of some of the things that we do. Um, One of the things that I think both attracts people to emergency medicine and makes it fun is for those of you who are of a certain age listening, you know the term MacGyvering or being a MacGyver. There's this television show where this guy MacGyver would get out of all these scrapes by just really clever use of everyday things. He'd like hang himself from the thing with a toothpick and use a paper clip and duct tape and emergency docs tend to fall off what the textbook would say fairly rapidly because the situations just require creative on the go thinking. And so a story from my residency that I think typifies some of this, you'll never find this in a textbook, is the following. Middle of the night, I'm a resident, a junior resident, I think an intern. And the senior resident is sort of laughing as he hands me a chart. Back then it was paper. I'm that old. And he said, "Hey, see the guy in bed 4. This guy's great." And he's sort of cracking up. And I'm like, "All right, what's up? Like something's weird here." He said, "Well, couple of things to know. He's a young guy who's incoherent. He is naked. He was found naked in a park with no identification, no anything. And he speaks a foreign language. Go, enjoy, find out what's wrong."
Oh
So I'm
boy.
like, "You got to be kidding me, right?" So I go to see this guy, and
At
the
least you know he's not
police,
carrying any weapons.
That
yes,
that's good. Although
that's
you
good.
don't know what language it
Well,
is,
right. So I go in the
right?
room, and this guy is clearly intoxicated. So he's not coherent even in his own language. The police who were there said they found him in the bushes in a park at 2 a.m. in Chicago, buck naked. No ID, no watch, no wallet, nothing. Buck naked, all scratched up in some bushes. Didn't seem to be particularly injured or anything, but was clearly intoxicated and not speaking English. And my attempts
Hmm,
to speak English to him weren't really doing so well.
yeah.
Now, as luck would have it, you pull together everything you got, and I've traveled a lot, so I have an ear for languages. And after he was jabbering on for a while, I was like, "This guy's speaking Dutch. That is Dutch." It's had that sort of slightly Germanic, slightly guttural
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
He's speaking Dutch.
Great
So I said,
impression of a Dutch
"Thank
accent,
you,
by the
thank
way.
you, thank you."
Fantastic.
Definitely
We've
not
just
You're
we've
offensive.
just offended the entire
you're a,
nation of the
yeah,
Netherlands in one
you're
go.
a man of culture. All
Oh
right,
yeah, there
keep
you
it
go, right
going.
there, exactly. so, so, so at least I got that far, and I
Okay.
asked him his name, and he was able to tell me that. So I got a name. Whatever.
Yeah.
Hans Schufen. I just made that up. Whatever, some name.
Yeah.
And So I say, okay, but this doesn't tell me anything else because I don't speak Dutch. This was well before there were translator services. So
Mm.
what am I going to do with this guy? So, I had to MacGyver. So I knew that Chicago being a big city had consulates. And I figured there must be a Dutch consulate, and I had his name. So I just said, to hell with it. I'm just going to call the consulate. So I called the consulate, and there was a 24/7 consular emergency number. And I woke up some sleepy consular guy who's like, yeah, yeah, what? I'm like, I got this guy. Here's his name. I think he's like from your country. I, and I don't know what to do with him. He seems medically fine, but like, help me out here.
Uh-huh.
Well, the guy said, okay, give me some time. He looked into it. He calls me back. And wouldn't you know it, they ran it through the Dutch computers. This guy had run away from home with his parents' money and credit cards, had gotten into a whole like drug situation in Chicago,
Oh, no.
Oh,
and must
wow.
have been intoxicated and gotten robbed blind. They took everything, like literally everything,
Including his clothing.
and
Oh,
threw
man.
him in the bushes and left him for whatever. And this is the best part.
Wow.
This Every ER doctor, every physician, I think, likes the Staples Easy button, just something that makes the whole thing like go away or better.
Uh-huh.
The Dutch that day endeared me. They provided it. They said, "Sir, we shall be coming with a car. We have emergency repatriation tickets. We will clothe him and put him on a KLM aircraft to Amsterdam where his family will meet him. We got this." I was like, oh my
Oh
God,
my
I love
goodness.
you. And I will wear wooden clogs for the rest of my life. And so lo
Just
and
0
behold,
for 2 here.
and by the way, my senior resident was so impressed. Like this car
Oh,
shows up,
yeah.
two really serious dudes in suits get out. They're very polite. They thank us. They speak Dutch to this guy. They
Well, it's like
package him up.
international relations incident
Yeah.
at this point.
Totally.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, you like that? So that's one
That's
of
so
my
cool.
that's just like a
That
wacky story.
that actually reminds me, saying how you want like an easy button, right? To
Right.
just because you have so many things you're doing at the same time in emergency medicine. Um, I did during my intern year, I did 2 months of emergency medicine at a small community hospital, and I don't remember a whole lot from those months, but the one thing that really sticks in my mind is calling poison control, and it was amazing. I was like, "Okay, well, the patient had this, uh, what do I do?" And, like, they just outline it, like, "You do this, you check this lab at this time, you do this, you do that." It was the most incredible thing,
And then you
like
get to take credit for all of their work. You go in the room and you're
Right,
like, "Here's what you
here's
do."
what we're doing. And they and,
exactly.
and they thought you're a genius.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to make a broader, I think, serious point, I think we need more of that in medicine because there's too much to know
Mhm.
for any of us. And point of care, just they call it just-in-time education, just-in-time training. Poison control is like a great example of that. I often wonder if for post-arrest care we need that because, when a
Mm.
patient rolls into the ER and I was like, oh, I do this once a month. I don't see people who survive cardiac arrest. I wish I could get on the phone and walk them through it. And so anyway, I think you're very right to highlight poison control as a really good illustration of a certain efficiency where, we don't need to know that
Yeah.
stuff. There's one guy who knows everything there and you get
Right.
that guy or gal on the phone and you're good to go.
Yeah, I'm impressed that you thought to call the consulate, like, that nowhere would
Yeah.
that have ever entered
That's
my
amazing.
mind.
Well, that certainly wouldn't be in a textbook, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
So many things and actually, the next story too, I think, is a little bit extra textbookian too.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you one more. This one's a shorter story and involves a medical student who got a big surprise. So set the stage.
Med
I'm now in
students
a
love
They love them.
surprises.
Yeah,
Oh,
All
I was
they
right.
love
thinking the same
surprises.
thing.
So I have a very young and impressionable female medical student with me. I think she's not even a third year yet. She might have been a first year shadowing actually.
Mm.
Um, and I go in a room and it's a busy shift, lot going on. And there's this guy, a construction worker, big burly guy, who is doing some work on something. And he clearly jacked up his finger. It was dislocated. The end of his finger. The end of the finger was just like in the wrong place. It was clearly dislocated. He was tough. He was sort of,
Yeah.
and I sort of felt it. Nothing was broken. And it was like he was jammed it against a piece of wood. So it was clearly just dislocated. And the textbook would say that you need to relocate it reasonably soon and that you can inject anesthetic like lidocaine to make it better and then do it. But I'd have to get the lidocaine. It was a really busy shift. It takes some time. And the more it swells, the harder it is to relocate. So,
Oh,
as
okay.
an attending trying to manage the room and everything, I looked at him and sized him up quickly. Big, tough dude. You see where
Yeah.
this is going. And I look at him and say, hey,
Yeah.
how are you with pain? And
Oh
he
boy.
got it. He like was right there with me. And he goes, Doc, do what you got to do. And I just grab it and I just yank. And it goes, "Claw!" And he makes a loud gasping noise. It's one
Yeah.
second, it clicks, and
Uh-huh.
he's fine. The med student, boom, passes out instantly,
No,
hits the deck.
no.
Total vasovagal, hits the floor, and suddenly me and the construction guy are both in partners in medicine, like lifting this girl up. We put her on the bed, we get her legs up, we're like, hey,
Now
you
she's the
okay?
patient.
And
Yeah.
she
Oh
Yeah.
was
no.
poor thing. She was so embarrassed. She's like,
Yeah.
what happened? What happened? But I didn't, and it was my bad. I didn't warn her. I didn't say, now we're about to do something really quick here.
Yeah.
I think it just caught her so unawares. And some people when they see pain or hear a
Yeah.
painful thing, so she just dropped. So I don't think I got great points for
Oh,
like
man.
knocking
Oh
out a
my
medical student,
goodness.
but
How
Yeah.
common is that? I mean, like, I feel like that happens, right? You
What,
think you,
passing out?
yeah, you,
kind of
well, you
things.
would think that, like, if you're going into medicine, if you're a med student, that you're like okay with seeing some of that stuff. But that's not always the case. Like, there might be certain, parts of the body that you just can't handle or
Certain
whatever. So, like, how,
things in the operating room is the classic example,
yeah,
or
That's right.
like labor and delivery. Yeah,
right.
it happens there. In the eye clinic, it happens.
Yeah. It seems
Oh,
like you
sure,
have to
because
kind
the
of build
eye
up a
stuff.
tolerance
Ugh.
The eye
sometimes.
stuff. Yeah, how do you feel about eye stuff?
Well, I mostly just yell about the broken slit lamp. That's what I mostly do.
That's right.
It's a good
Exactly.
approach. Then you
Because
sound like
no
you know
one
what you're
knows
talking
that
about.
it's not broken, but I say, oh,
Yeah.
that thing, and that's who adjusted this
Oh.
knob and the thing, and and people are
Is
like,
it
oh yeah, yeah.
do you get a little like whenever I'm sure there's probably nothing that shows up on the board, or maybe there is something that shows up on the board that like kind of you like feel like, oh man, like this is gonna be kind
This is
of
gonna be
tough.
rough.
Yeah.
There's
But do you feel
many.
that way about eye problems?
Yes, absolutely. Most emergency docs are, I think I speak for many of us, eye
Yep.
problems are not our fave. And it's just because we don't see it enough. We're not,
Yep.
it's such a discomfort thing. And we're not great at the slit lamp. I'm not great at the slit lamp.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we don't love it. And we
Well, the
also
thing
know
is,
that, yeah,
we have low expectations of you too.
right.
Like, and
That's
that's good.
fine.
That's fine. Like we get it. Like nobody. You had what, one lecture in med school, and then that's usually it.
Yeah.
All right, for
I
people who are
understand that
not
you tend to like us
ophthalmologists.
to ultrasound it, right? You want us to ultrasound the
Oh
eyeball
boy.
and do,
Ah, are we going there? Is that this where
You
this where we're
just
going?
you just threw down a
I'm a
gauntlet.
provocateur. What can I say? No, 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 no.
In certain situations, it's okay, but it's I I do know that I found a big change once I went from like an academic center residency program out to the community, because you got the sense in residency that nobody outside of ophthalmology could do anything, not even look at the eye, and I think that's just because there's a residency program.
Yeah, why
Like
wouldn't you
if
just
you have
send that
access to
over?
ophthalmology residents who are eager and need to learn, like eye problem, bring them in. Let's do it. Once I got into private practice, like I've actually been very impressed with my local emergency doctors. And I'm not just trying to endear them to me who might be listening right now, to not bother me too much on call, but it's true. I've been impressed. Like just I think what you gain on the job, and figuring out what's a serious eye problem, what's not a serious eye problem, which I think is a big thing with emergency medicine, right? Like what's
Oh
really
yeah,
bad and what's not so bad.
that's
You
right.
know, I think you're good at that.
Well, and actually, the
I'm gonna
third
give you
story.
credit here. I'm gonna give you some eye
Nice.
credit.
All right, eye credit,
Yeah.
outstanding. Well, and my final story actually speaks to the eventual realization that something is serious when we thought we could not think it was serious. And I thought if it's okay, I'd close with a story on my storytelling because this one involves me personally and it's very embarrassing. And it
Oh,
speaks,
perfect.
yes,
That's
and it speaks to the fact that physicians are the worst doctors for themselves and their families.
oh yeah.
No
Yes.
physician does a good job when they're diagnosing their kids, their loved ones,
No,
right?
all he says is, "They're fine."
Yeah, they're fine.
They could be, like, gushing blood. They're
They're
fine.
fine.
They're fine. Yeah, and sometimes they are,
Is it
sometimes they
oozing or
aren't. But
squirting? Is it oozing or squirting? Right? That's
right,
what you need.
right.
Anyway, go
That's
ahead.
it. Yeah, yeah. No, it's right. So, I'll set the stage. My wife of 21 years is pregnant with child. No, currently 21 years. back a long time ago, she was pregnant with child number 3. That child number 3 is now 15 years old. In fact, these are his Xbox headphones. Um, yeah, she was pregnant with number 3, and we go every year from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. to celebrate Thanksgiving with her family, and the baby was due on Thanksgiving Day. The OB-GYN said, you know what? It's your 3rd kid. They come fast. Do it Thanksgiving. Why don't you stick around? Why don't they come here? Why don't you chill out, do your own turkey? Don't go to DC. My wife was like, no, we're going to DC. That's not a thing. I'm like, honey, are you sure? She's like, shh, we're going to DC. That's actually, she didn't say shh, she said something else, but inappropriate. So I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. So we go to DC, and wouldn't you know it, 1 a.m, Friday morning after the turkey, I get the elbow in the ribs, wake up, wait, I'm in labor. And we're in DC, and she's in labor. And so doctor mistake number 1 was not listening to her OB-GYN and just going to DC when 3rd babies come fast. Mistake number 2.
I think it's worth pointing out, isn't your wife also in medicine?
Thank you. I neglected to mention, thank you for that.
She's not really.
She's a doctor as well. She's a cancer doctor, an oncologist. So mistake number 1 was we didn't follow our OB-GYN's wise advice. Mistake number 2 is about to happen. Mistake number 2 is we say, let's get in the car and drive to Philly. At 1 a.m.
baby number 3.
On 95 for baby number 3, because that's smart.
And the distance between Philly and DC?
2.5-hour drive.
2.5 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not just down the road. All right.
No. And she's 10 minutes from Holy Cross Hospital in DC, a perfectly fine hospital that probably has perfectly fine labor and delivery floor. 10 minutes, 2.5 hours. Right. So we get in the car, we start just hiking it up 95 at high speed, trying to get there. We're timing contractions on the car clock, like we know what we're doing. And it turns out when we get to Baltimore, the contractions are really speeding up and she's having a lot more pain. And that's the moment when you say, like, when it's serious, where we woke up. We were like, you know what? This is totally stupid. We're not OB-GYN doctors. We actually have I've delivered babies occasionally, but we really don't know what we're doing. It's dark. We're in a car. What are we doing? Like, this is just ridiculous. So I remembered Hopkins well enough to know that Hopkins Bayview, ironically, where I did emergency medicine, was right off the highway. I'm like, we're going to Hopkins Bayview. We pull off, we pull in, we go to the ER, and we say, we're having a baby. The intern delivered us. The attending walks in after, was like, hey, congrats, nice baby. I'm sure they
Nice
billed for,
baby.
they said like present for all stages of the procedure,
Attestation. The pertinent parts of the procedure.
So, and by the way, once they found out I was an emergency doctor, I was teased mercilessly. Like, they're like, oh, doc, nice. Because, people come in like this all the time to ER. So here I was, the thing that we tease, I was that guy. So the teasing was endless. I couldn't wait to get out of there. And so our 3rd child was randomly born in Baltimore, even though we've never lived there as a family.
Before you drove into the hospital and the baby was born, how
good question.
Not long.
How fast was that?
Like an hour. Not
oh my God, you just made it. So you probably would not have made it to Philly.
Yes, especially with all the bumping in the road and all the nonsense. Yeah, I don't know if it would have worked out.
What kind of car were you in?
A Honda Odyssey, and the upholstery. I mean, oh my goodness, it would have been such a mess.
Yes. Would have been quite a job for the detailer.
Yes. Try explaining that to the detailer,
I bet they've seen that a bunch.
A bunch? I don't know. I was like,
Occasionally.
maybe this is their specialty. Did you have a baby in your car? Come to.
I detect meconium, sir. Yeah. It was
wow.
Yeah. So this is a big hit, as you can imagine, at dinner parties and stuff, because we'll have people over and they'll say, oh, Asher, he's like, yeah, I was born in Baltimore. And they'll say, oh, when did you guys live in Baltimore? We'd say, oh, we didn't. And they'll be like, wait, what? And then, that provokes the story. Yeah. It always brings the house down. People love that story.
I love it. It's great coming from an emergency doctor.
I'm also amazed, like, knowing you were going against medical advice to go to DC in the first place, that you didn't just have a plan of, okay, so if she goes into
there wasn't
she
a
goes
lot
into
of
labor,
prefrontal cortex activity going on. This was all brainstem. Just
must get turkey. Right. Yeah, this was not a very cerebral kind of thing. So the point being that doctors are can be really dumb about
Yeah.
healthcare. But we did have that instinct kick in eventually that said, "Oh,
Mhm.
this has suddenly
Uh-huh.
gotten serious, and we need help," and we got help.
Well, we could certainly all be better at taking care of ourselves
Ugh,
and
yes.
each other.
All of
Yeah.
us that are attached to you can attest.
Yes. Although,
Awesome.
I mean, Kristen, my goodness, the CPR delivery queen over here.
Yeah,
Well, see, that's the kind of stuff
seriously.
you put us through. So I gotta do that. I'm not
I
even
know.
trained.
Gotcha. I mean, I've thought to myself, well, if it was the other way around, would I have done as good of a job? I mean,
Oh,
I am a
decidedly not.
I am
I
a
think that's
doctor,
just a
but
general.
I am an ophthalmologist. So I don't know. I don't know. Hopefully we'll never have to find out.
Hopefully not.
All right. Well,
Hopefully not.
let's take a quick break,
Okay.
and we're going to be back with Ben Abella, and we're going to play a game. Ben, I'm excited about this. All right, we'll be back in just a minute. A big thank you to all of our listeners. This is a new show. Spread the love. Please share with all your friends and coworkers and anybody you know in life. Leave a rating and review. Be honest with us. Tell us what you think. We want to keep the good stuff going, improve the stuff that's not so good. Let us know. Later today, we're going to be sharing some of your own medical stories. You can share yours, knock knock hi at human-content.com. We also have a Patreon. Come hang out with us. Other members of the Knock Knock Hi community, early episode access, bonus episodes. We're doing a monthly show called the monthly eye exam, where we react to medical shows and movies, clips and things. It's great. It's great. You'll love it. Come join us. And next week, there's going to be a new monthly eye exam.
Hey.
We're doing it. All right. Sign up for Patreon. Check it out. Now, let's get back to Dr. Ben Abella. All right, we are back with Ben Abella. And Ben, I'm excited. We're going to play a game here called Battle of the Specialties. Okay.
Okay.
So here's the way it's going to work. Kristen is going to be like the mock med student. All right. So she's again, not in medicine, but she's going to pretend like she's interested in medicine here. Uh,
I've been
and
doing it for 12 years.
and you, as the emergency doctor, will be trying to convince Kristen that she should not choose emergency medicine. She should choose ophthalmology.
Okay.
Okay. And
Okay.
I, as the ophthalmologist, am going to convince her that no. Ophthalmology, no way. Dumb. Don't do that. You got to go into emergency medicine. So we're gonna argue for each other's specialties, and then Kristen's going to decide who came up with the best argument. Okay.
Okay.
So do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, give us something, and then we'll just kind of go back and forth here. All right,
So,
let's hear it.
Kristen, you can't even imagine how gross emergency medicine is. I mean, so for example, see this finger? This finger has been up thousands of rectums, thousands of them. And these are just like, and this is the same finger I have to like eat peanut butter with. I mean, it's just you
Oh
don't
my
want
goodness.
that. It's just foul. There's no way you want that in your life. You just don't. So the eyes are clean, they're above the neck. You're not getting your hands in the goop and all the body fluids and I'll tell you, I had a college student urinate all over me, a drunk college student urinate on me from head to toe in my first year as an attending. You don't want to be peed on. Eyes do not pee. They do not urinate.
Okay,
And there's the quote for this episode.
eyes do not pee. Um, Compelling points, Ben. A counterpoint. All right. Imagine though, Kristen, you're going to med school. All right, you learn everything, head to toe, so much about the human body. Why on earth would you want to take all that wonderful knowledge and then just forget all of it and just focus on the eyeball? The eye, it's 2.5 centimeters. Like what's like, wouldn't you want to do something like emergency medicine where you can use everything you've learned? Head to like all the parts of the body. I'm not going to name them because I don't know a lot of them, but you get to really just apply everything that you've learned the last 4 years versus the eye. I mean, it can only do so many things.
That is a lot of very
It's just
expensive
it's
information
kind
to
of
forget.
it's kind of boring. Like, come on, you're gonna get sick of eye stuff. That's all I'm saying. Emergency medicine, come on, new thing every day, all the time. It keeps things interesting.
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
Well, Kristen, Will's got some important points there, but I would say that in emergency medicine, there's something we are really lacking, and I can say the whole argument in 2 words: No, Jonathan. So
That's a
and
good
we have no
point.
Mm.
scribes, we have no Jonathan. And if I've learned one thing from your husband, it's that having a Jonathan, having a scribe who can feed you grapes, who can take care of you, who can soothe your soul, this is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I go to bed at night and say, a Jonathan. I just want a Jonathan, and I'll never get one because when we ask the hospital administration for a Jonathan, they say, "Yeah, we're gonna put that on the committee for discussion, and we'll get
Yes.
back to you." And yeah, no Jonathan.
Okay. All right. Well, that that's a good point. But Ben, you heard Ben talk about how gross emergency medicine is. All right, I want to come
Sounds
back to
very
this because
gross.
I think you're really underestimating how disgusting ophthalmology can be. Have you ever seen bacterial
Oh,
conjunctivitis?
dear.
All right, yeah, no, the eye cannot pee, but it can produce copious amounts of mucopurulent fluid. Okay, as I mean, gonorrhea is bad wherever it is, but
When does this game end?
especially when it finds its way
Mayday,
onto the
mayday.
eyeball. What are you going to do
Oh.
when a patient comes in says they think they were traveling, they went to South America, and they think they might have a parasite in their eye? What are you going to do about that? Hmm?
I'm gonna run.
Exactly. You run away. You run
True
away.
story. I
Okay.
had a loved one with that thing that gets under the contact lens and eats the eye out. The amoeba
Oh.
thing.
Acanthamoeba.
Yes, and he had to get all
Yeah.
the specialty stuff. Nearly lost his
Ay.
eyesight. Actually, it was terrifying. He's fine now,
Hmm.
but it was
You're
not
making
good.
my point for me, Ben. You're not doing a great job.
Okay. So
What
the other
else you got?
yeah, so the other thing, Kristen, that is important to think about is just lifestyle considerations. So
Mhm.
you work holidays, you work Christmas, you work Thanksgiving, and there's only so much Diet Coke that a person can consume to get one through these moments in life, and I would say about 90% of my body water comes from Diet Coke, and that's just not a healthy way to live. It's just not. It's not great. So an ophthalmologist, they drink Fiji water, artisanal spring waters that Jonathan brings on a. I'm sure there's a silver platter involved somewhere, and there's a
Don't
white.
talk about our silver platters, please.
Oh, that was a secret. Sorry. And the little white napkin. And I'm sure there's little spritz of lime in the artisanal water. And I'm just horking down 2-liter bottles of Diet Coke, getting all hopped up on caffeine. Like it's just not a healthy way to live. But if you have to get through at 2 in the morning, it's French fries with hot sauce and Diet Coke all the way. You can only imagine how much Prilosec I have to take.
Okay. All right. All right. And I get the last word here since you started. So excitement. All right. Excitement and patient satisfaction. That's what I want to focus on. Patient satisfaction. Because in emergency medicine, people are coming to you on the worst day of their life. All right. They're like terrible. They think they're gonna die. Sometimes they like think this something terrible is happening. Sometimes terrible things are happening, and you save lives. You know how often you save lives in ophthalmology?
How often?
You don't. It doesn't happen. All right. Occasionally you can save eyes, but 99% of the time you're treating dry eye. There's a lot of dry eye. All right. And that's not very exciting. But in emergency medicine, it's there's a lot more excitement. Now, yeah, some of it's gross. All right. We acknowledge that. But it's also very exciting and very rewarding because you're saving lives. All right. You don't want an ophthalmologist saving your life. And isn't that why we go into medicine? I mean, it's not why I went into medicine because I never at any point wanted to save lives in ophthalmology, but a lot of people do. And it's a very rewarding thing. And so that's why you should absolutely do emergency medicine because we need hardworking, beautiful, kind,
Mhm.
amazing,
Mhm.
wonderful
Mhm.
emergency
You're
medicine
talking about
doctors.
Ben, right?
I was talking about
Well,
Ben.
Doc, you
Yes,
said
yes.
dry eyes. There's not a dry eye over here right now. Oh my goodness.
And so we've both made very compelling arguments. What specialty do you want to go into?
Oh, boy. You both did make some very compelling arguments,
Mhm.
very
Yes,
convincing.
of course.
Um, I
You
think
have to choose.
ultimately eyeballs are just disgusting, and I like to think that I have honorary ER
Oh.
status, so
You're gonna
I
pick
think I'll
Okay.
emergency
choose
medicine?
ER. Yeah, so
Okay.
sorry,
Well,
Ben, I think that means you lose
yeah.
the game, but it's really win-win.
That's right. It's like I won in my loss, you know?
Yes,
And
you lost the game, but win at life.
I won the
There you
war.
go.
Yes, right. And in
That's
fact,
right.
you'd be an amazing ear doc. And I think anyone who does CPR for like what 10 minutes straight
Yeah.
on a
Mhm.
larger individual and saves a
Mhm.
life earns the honorary title of Bafford. Have you ever heard the term Bafford?
Yes, I have, but tell everybody what it
Well,
means.
am I
You
allowed to
can
say
tell
not?
us.
Am I allowed to
You
say
can
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
you
words?
can tell
So,
us.
so we're fully vetted for bad language. It'll get beeped out or
We can
something.
Well,
bleep it
we
out
can
if we're
bleep it out
not.
if we want
Okay.
to. That's
So
fine.
there's a phrase that circulates around Facebook and other things called a Bafford, badass ER doc, and it's this notion of just a person who's like a little calloused but in the trenches, working hard, just taking names, saving lives, not breaking a sweat. And so the term Bafford becomes a bit of a
Mhm.
ideal to shoot for. And I'm kind of thinking doing CPR like you did and saving a life is kind of Bafford status. I'm kind of thinking that.
There you go.
Well, I will take it, but I do have to say, mostly it was just, there's no frickin' way that you're leaving me here with the mortgage and 2 children. Get back here right now.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a
No
fair
going to
reason
the
to wanna
light for you,
save me.
young man.
Hey, whatever well, yeah, whatever whatever reason you need to justify it, I'll take it. So, well, Ben, this was a pleasure. Before we go, tell us, do you have any, I guess, parting words for our audience or things you're working on or kind of a message you wanna leave us with?
Well, sure. My work has to do a lot with cardiac arrest, and it's very relevant for some of our conversation today. And we're seeing cases in the media, in the press of people. Christian Eriksen, a soccer player, had cardiac arrest and made a survival. Sadly, a NBA G League player did not survive. So it's out there as a thing, and it's really, I think, important that everybody learns CPR, that everybody understand what an AED, automatic external defibrillator, is. And I've spent a lot of my time and energy pushing these concepts because they're really life saving, and everyone can achieve Bafford status if they know how to do CPR and they know how to use an AED, because cardiac arrest, you don't know what's going to happen, and it's absolutely life or death. So that's like a little PSA
Yeah.
that I should close with.
Oh, amen to that. We should have defibrillators everywhere in public places,
Mhm.
and yeah, there's no excuse really. Everyone, if you're physically able to do CPR, learn CPR. Absolutely. So, Ben, thank you for all the amazing work that you're doing as a cardiac arrest survivor. I appreciate it, and I know Kristen does too. And so, thank you for your time. So we'll be back with some of your listener stories here in a minute. So thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a look at some of our favorite medical stories that were sent in by all of you, the listeners. So our first story comes from Jacob S. As a volunteer companion, I was responsible for keeping the patient company for the day. The patient saw this as an opportunity for me to scratch his back for 3
Oh,
hours.
no.
The nurse eventually got him a Benadryl, which was a lifesaver. I'm in my second year of med school, so I guess it all paid off. I just want to commend Jacob. Well done. Like that's great. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Somebody's itchy, you gotta
yeah,
scratch.
yeah, and that's it just shows dedication to patient care in whatever way you can provide it, right? And so thank you for being there as the back scratcher, Jacob,
There
for
could
that
have been
patient.
worse things to have had to scratch.
True, yeah, but I'm sure that how when it's hard to scratch your own back.
It is, you
You
can't reach
you
back
can't
there.
do it.
Can't
You
get
can't
it.
do it. Okay, and fan story number 2 here. Let's see, Raquel T. It happened when I was a first year resident during a night shift in the ER. I suddenly got a call from a phone pager saying, "Hi, I am the neurologist. I need to speak with Dr. Maria." And so I told Maria, "Hey, neurology wants to speak with you." As Maria is approaching the phone, I can hear the doctor say, "Not the neurologist, the urologist." And to that, I responded, "Sorry, Maria, the doctor of the other brain wants to speak with you." Eternal laughing was heard among the staff and the urologist from the phone. Fast forward 1 year later, and apparently I am known in that department for this story. It could be a chance for us nephrology or neurology and urology to get along for the first time in history, all because of a misunderstanding. I love that. That's a common thing that people get confused about neuro because they sound very similar, right?
Especially over the phone when you can't see the.
That's the first time I really put two and two together, realized there's a brain on both of them. That's
Yeah, right.
that's pretty good. I like that. And also, urologists have, I think, the best sense of humor in medicine. As
Well,
someone who
you've got to, yeah.
has interacted with almost everybody in all different specialties, it's noticeable the sense of humor from urologists. And you're right. I mean, they kind of have to. Like
Yeah,
this
you're self-selecting.
there's
Get made
lots
fun
of
of
very
quite a bit.
sensitive, interesting things that happen with penises, and so and you gotta be okay with looking at a lot of penises. As I mentioned in my urology video, an aggressive number of penises,
Aggressive.
and so I appreciate the urologist's sense of humor. Thank you for those two stories. You can send us your stories, knock knock hi at human-content.com. We'd love to hear from you. Um, that was a fun episode with
That was fun.
Dr. Abella.
He's got some
He's a
crazy
We're a
stories.
big fan of Ben and the work that he does with cardiac arrest, and something that we've both been active in, especially you.
Yeah.
And so we appreciate that. And I just want to reiterate, the whole learning CPR. Definitely, we all know somebody who doesn't know CPR. And so if you know it and we have family members you think might not know CPR, then just talk to them about it. Tell them, hey,
And the good
get
news is
certified.
it's not very complicated. They
Yeah.
they kind of make it seem complicated because you got to go. You always hear about certification. It's this
Yeah.
whole process takes several weeks. No, I mean, sure, that's great, and do that if you can. But if you can't, the important thing is just
Probably
it's very simple mechanism that anybody can do.
the worst way to have to learn is doing it on your own husband in real time.
Yeah, that was not fun
That was probably a little rough. So we recommend not learning it that
in
way.
real time. Yeah.
But yeah, and it's a quick certification. Actually, I just recertified recently.
Nice.
So yeah, and they actually do have to teach us ophthalmologists about it. And because we forget, that's okay. All right. So if you know any doctors that you'd like us to, or medical professionals, anybody, people on the internet, I don't know, someone in healthcare you want us to talk to on this podcast, hey, let us know. We're always open to ideas. There's lots of ways to reach out to us. You can email us, knockknockhi at human-content.com. We're on TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and
Find
what
it on our
else?
website.
Yeah, our website,
Glaucomflecken.com.
glaucomflecken.com. You can also hang out with us and our Human Content Podcast family on Instagram and TikTok at Human Content Pods. I want to thank all the listeners for leaving wonderful feedback and reviews for us. The reviews help. We want to hear those reviews, see those reviews. If you
Are you saying that you don't want to thank the ones that did not leave wonderful reviews?
well, you at least listened and you gave it a good effort, and that counts. That's good. Maybe if you don't like it, that's fine. Not everybody likes everything, but
It is hard to like you sometimes.
yeah, I accept that. That's okay. We'll allow that one. This is part of what you do.
They keep you humble.
That's for sure. All right. Now, I don't know where I was. Where are we? What was I talking about? Oh, thank you. I was thanking people.
Mhm.
I was thanking people. You can comment on your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube. All right. And we might give you a shout out. So if we see your content, I'll see your content. But if we see your comment, we can shout you out on the podcast. Like right now, Rachel G on YouTube said, "First podcast I'm excited about ever. And everyone has a podcast." That's true. I was a little concerned about that, actually. I was like, I'm doing the thing that
does.
Everybody's already
Kind of
done.
cliche. Yeah.
yeah, but hey, everybody does it for a reason, I suppose. YouTube will have full video episodes up every week. My YouTube channel is at D Glaucomflecken. We have a Patreon as well. Lots of cool perks, bonus episodes where we react to medical shows and movies. Hang out with the Knock Knock Hi member community. We're there. We're responding. We're talking. Come hang out with us. Early ad-free episode access as a Patreon. and interactive Q&A live stream events, and lots more. We'll see what we come up with. Patreon.com/Glaucomflecken, or go to our website, Glaucomflecken.com. Thank you for listening. We are your hosts, Will and Kristen Flannery, also known as the Glaucomfleckens. Special thanks to our guests today, Dr. Benjamin Abella. Our executive producers are Will and Kristen Flannery, Aaron Corney, Rob Goldman, and Shanti Brook. Our editor and engineer is Jason Portizo. Our music is by Omer Benzvi. To learn about our Knock Knock High's program disclaimer and ethics policy, submission verification and licensing terms, and HIPAA release terms, you can go to our website, glaucomflecken.com, or reach out to us at where? Knock Knock High at human-content.com with any questions, concerns, or fun jokes. I'm sure you probably
Or
have
bad
some
jokes.
You can do bad jokes too. Doesn't have to be good jokes. Bad jokes. I've got plenty of those as well. Knock Knock High is a human content production.
Knock, knock. Goodbye.
Thanks for watching the episode. You can find more on that playlist over there. If you prefer to listen, or you just had your eyes dilated, you can binge full episodes wherever you get your podcasts, or join the party over on Patreon, where you get early access episodes, hang out with us, get lots of exclusive bonus content. Hope you subscribe, leave a comment below. Let us know what you think.